The clash happened on the night between 8th and 9th December. About 300 Chinese troops tried to capture icy heights around Yangtse. If either side manages to capture the heights at 17,000 feet, it would give them visibility up to 25 to 30 kilometers on either side. Hence, there's no need for patrolling in the harsh winter months. More than 2 years after the deadly Galwan clashes, Chinese troops turned to the same playbook. While no lethal weapons were used, PLA troops were armed with clubs, sticks and machetes. Around 6 soldiers were injured on the Indian side. The number of injuries on the Chinese side are believed to be far more.
भारतीय सेना ने बहादुरी से पीएलए को हमारी टेरिटरी में अतिक्रमण करने से रोका और उन्हें उनकी पोस्ट पर वापस जाने के लिए मजबूर कर दिया। अध्यक्ष महोदय, हमारे किसी भी सैनिक की न तो मृत्यु हुई है और न ही कोई गंभीर रूप से घायल हुआ है।
But while India stood firm amid Chinese aggression, the opposition saw opportunity to target the government.
And why I say that is that why are they hiding behind the bravery of our Indian soldiers? Where is their political leadership? Where is their bravery?
But there is a need for a wider and a deeper discussion on why China is doing that.
Home Minister Amit Shah countered Congress with this big attack.
कांग्रेस सरकार ने चीन की धमकी के बाद हमारे रोड और वाइटल बॉर्डर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर्स का निर्माण डैम चौक में रोक दिया कि राजीव गांधी फाउंडेशन को 2005-6 और 2006-7 के वित्तीय साल में चीनी दूतावास से 1,35,00,000 रुपए का अनुदान प्राप्त हुआ था।
अरे उसका इसका क्या संबंध है? तुम अगर हमारी गलती है तो फांसी पे लगाओ, लेकिन इससे क्यों जोड़ रहे हो? देश की सुरक्षा है।
As the war of words continues, are we headed for a full-blown conflict with China?
And in the wake of the Tawang clashes, Indian Air Force is scheduled to carry out a consolidated training exercise this week in the eastern sector. In fact, all the key eastern Air Force stations which are located in Assam, which is Tezpur AFS, Jorat AFS, Mohanbari and Chabua in Dibrugarh district will be participating in this training exercise. Is this really linked to the developments in Tawang? We are being joined by Akash on the phone line. Akash, give us the details. Is this really a routine exercise planned in advance?
Maria, it's true that it's a routine exercise, but given the condition and given the clash, it is very important. In fact, we have been given to understand that this exercise is scheduled this week, and it is going to happen in the eastern sector. And Maya, it is important because, just a few hours back, we have informed our viewers that how China was constantly violating our airspace, how their drones were aggressively moving towards the Indian positions at the actual line of control in the very same area. So this is very important, and this is coming after Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh's statement where, Raksha Mantri has confirmed whatever happened on 9th of December. So it is very important. And, Maria, this is, essential to mention here that from 16th November to 25th November, we have had several instances when China actually violated the airspace of India, specifically in Arunachal Pradesh. Given all these conditions, this exercise is going to be very, very important when Indian Air Force is going to check the readiness of the aircraft. And yes, it was a routine exercise. It used to happen, every year, but this time it is planned much in advance.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Let me bring in our special guests this evening. Joining me on the show, General D.S. Huda. Also on the show is Lieutenant General Ata Hasnain. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. General Huda, I'm going to begin with you. India militarily remains vulnerable in the northeast. Given the geographical differences, are we still catching up with the China given our defense capabilities?
So, Maria, let me answer in two ways. One is, yes, in terms of infrastructure development, China's roads infrastructure is much better on the Tibet side. But having said that, let us not assume that the Indian military posture on the LAC in the eastern sector is weak. Traditionally, and much before even this incident happened in 2020 in eastern Ladakh, India has maintained a very strong presence along the line of actual control. The number of troops that are there have always sort of outmatched what was deployed on the Chinese side of the LAC. And after 2020, this posture has only strengthened. So we know that surveillance architecture along the line of actual control, the deployments have actually strengthened. And you are seeing that in what has happened at Yangtse. The incident apparently happened at night when the Chinese tried to overwhelm one of our posts by coming in large numbers. But the manner in which the Indian soldiers, the Indian army has reacted, obviously shows readiness levels, what they are seeing across the LAC. They would have seen, preparations that were happening on the other side. And that has helped them, sort of react in a quick manner. So yes, infrastructure, if you look at both sides, the Chinese side has better infrastructure, but the military capability, military posture on the LAC is very strong. So, let's not sort of conflate both the issues.
Okay. General Hasnain, from a military strategy, how significant is Tawang in the balance of power, and given China has targeted this area in the past as well?
See, Maria, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. And let me commence this program of yours by complimenting and congratulating the Indian Army for what it did on the 9th of December. I think the message has gone home quite clearly. As to your question specifically about Tawang, yes, Tawang is psychologically a very, very important landmark. On the line of actual control, on the northern borders, perhaps the best known landmark. It's labeled so also primarily because of its prominence in the 1962 war, also being the largest big name place in what is the Chinese like to call southern Tibet. So for the Chinese, Tawang bears a fairly great amount of importance, and simultaneously, ideologically, etc., from the Buddhist angle, it's got one of the biggest monasteries. The Chinese have their major claim actually on this part, on Arunachal Pradesh, and Tawang forms one of the very important areas here. So strategically, any operations which are directed in the Kameng division, in this part of Arunachal Pradesh, has a psychological effect too. And the Chinese are sending home this message to us. Ladakh has its own importance. The central sector has got its own importance. Sikkim has got its own importance. But in the comparative analysis of all four, perhaps Tawang bears the greatest strategic importance from a psychological angle.
General Hasnain, if there is one lesson that can be drawn from India's experiences with Chinese transgression over the last decade or so, is that the Chinese seem to set the pace on the nature and the timing of these transgressions. Because if you look at 2013 Depsang, a year later what happened, 2017, 2019, what do you think will follow this one? Particularly, it was a failed attempt. They wanted to repeat Galwan. That did not really happen.
This question is for me, Maria?
Yes, General Hasnain. Yes.
Oh, sorry.
General
Is
Atta
this
Hasnain.
question for me, Maria?
Yes, General Atta Hasnain. Please go ahead.
Okay. Well, yes, you're absolutely right. They have been taking the initiative. They have been setting the timelines. There is a strategy behind the activities, the actions which the PLA has been doing. From 2005 onwards, they wanted to set the narrative. They wanted to establish their claim lines with a greater amount of rhetoric, followed up by action on the ground, which they have been doing over a period of time. The walk-in operations, which they have indulged in Ladakh in particular, started around this time and have escalated accordingly. So it's a question of setting their narratives quite clearly.
Okay.
In 2020, when they came in April, it was quite clear that the intent was to do messaging, send home psychological messages to India, the rest of the world, and attempt to showed India in poorer light. attempt to show as if India was the weaker nation which could not stand up to the Chinese might. It was also a response to the cascading, the build-up of Indian strategic confidence over a period of time. I think 2 years after Galwan, 2.5 years after Galwan, perhaps the Chinese are sensing today that there is a return of even greater strategic confidence in India.
Okay.
The recent occurrences you've seen with exercise Yudhabhyas, India's refusal to buckle down on this whole demand of the Chinese to do away with exercise Yudhabhyas with the Americans in the central sector. I would also ascribe this many times to the internal situation in China. It happened in 2020 when China was at the height of the Wuhan virus. The world was labeling China as the originators of the Wuhan virus. This time again, you are finding an internal turbulence within China. We are still not certain how serious it is, but definitely there is something on within China because of the manner in which China has handled the virus.
That's right.
So when you put all this together,
yes,
you realize that India has a special attention from the Chinese.
Yes, the
They
anti-COVID
are wary
protests.
of India's rising importance and its strategic confidence.
The anti-COVID protests that you were highlighting, certainly, and Xi Jinping, is he trying to diffuse tension back home because of these protests that are there, and that is the reason why this offensive attempt. General Huda, in the last few months, there have been multiple rounds of commander-level talks, particularly to go back to what status quo was in case of Galwan. And now they have opened up another front. Would you say that time has come for India to look at a military operations at LAC, target China the way it targets us?
So, Maria, I don't think so. Honestly, is it time for us to sort of take some military operation? Let me also state that, while a lot of media attention is sort of focused on what China has been doing and how it sort of patrols in areas that are considered disputed, let me also put it on record that it's not the Indian Army is not patrolling areas that are disputed, or that the Indian Army is not staking its own claim on these disputed areas. It is doing equally that. We seem to have decided that this is a situation that needs to be dealt primarily at a diplomatic level. I think the strategy and the approach is fine. Do we need to get more proactive in our military approach? And I think we have got fairly proactive in our military approach. The kind of build-up that we have done along the LAC, the kind of infrastructure that is coming up, the focus that has shifted from the western sector to the northern border, all that I'm sure China is seeing. And what General Hasnain talked about, the fact that the Indian state has not sort of buckled down to what China wanted. Ultimately, all actions that are happening on the LAC are meant to put pressure on the Indian government and the Indian state. These actions are not really meant to capture some strategically vital territory or something like that. It's primarily to put pressure. And the fact that the Indian government has resisted this kind of pressure diplomatically, economically, militarily, I think should send out a very strong message to China.
Okay.
And I think the other message that this particular incident should send out is that this kind of behavior that the Chinese military is doing is extremely risky. And so if they want to talk about stability along the border, if they want, the bilateral relations to improve, this is something that they need to stop.
Before I give the final word to General Ata Hasnain, I want to understand from you, General Huda, when you look at the response or the statement that has been issued by China this time around vis-a-vis Galwan, would you say that this is more muted? Because they are saying that border situation is largely stable. They are being very careful in terms of maintained unobstructed dialogue is the focus. They also realize the significance of G20 this year and also the economic might of India now?
So, Maria, this is something that really is not new. So they've always been saying, let's dissociate the border issue from our overall bilateral relations. So they've always been saying, let the border situation be set aside and let's move on in other areas. And I think India has taken a very firm and a very good response. The foreign minister has said on numerous occasions, it cannot be business as usual until status quo is restored on the border. So I think our stance has been very firm, both at the ground level, at the military level, and also at the diplomatic level. And hopefully, I'm saying, the message will go out to China.
Okay. General Hasnain, your final thought and word. How do you see events panning out? Are you sensing some escalation? Because this was not provoked. I mean, in fact, China provoked India this time around.
See, Maria, this was not a petrol clash. That's the important thing to remember. A lot of people in the public may be thinking that this is a routine petrol clash. It's 300 men who have sneaked in at night, 3 o'clock in the morning, to try and, virtually attack a post of ours, dislocate it, and push it back. That the Indians were aware, the Indian army was aware, it had good intelligence, was prepared for it, could react and get the right amount of reinforcements, shows a high degree of professionalism. I hope that this message goes home very clearly to the PLA, that they are dealing with a set of professionals. If the PLA repeats this kind of a thing again, which I do think they will repeat sometime in the near future, it will show their lack of appreciation of what the Indian army is capable of. I'm quite certain this is not leading to war in under any circumstances. What this is leading to is brief periods of escalation to draw attention of the world, do psychological operations, and put the pressure on the Indian army and on the Indian nation. That is the intent of China, which I'm sure it will fail to achieve.
Thank you so much for your time, General Huda and General Atta Hasnain. Thank you for decoding this big story for us. Let me bring in the political guests at this hour. GVL Narasimha Rao, Member of Parliament of the BJP, Adil Singh Boparai, representing the Congress. Mr. Narasimha Rao, I'm going to begin with you. The charge coming from the opposition is that the government was waiting to reveal this information to the public. In fact, it was the news reports which first indicated the skirmish, and the opposition says that you have much to hide.
I would say even this is a very irresponsible accusation, because everything that the government, any statement that the government makes on the floor of the House has to be totally authentic, has to be 100% verified. And certainly it takes, after an incident like this, it takes information to know exactly, to get all the details, and also to ensure that no intruder from the PLA side has remained on our side. So the government has, in full responsibility, has made the statement after all the details became available to it. And we couldn't have, nobody could have spoken about it before the statement was made in Parliament, because when the Parliament is in session, it is the convention that only the government makes any statement only on the floor of Parliament and not outside. Otherwise, we could have, if the Parliament was not in session, possibly you could have had a statement released from the Indian Army or from the MEA. There would have been some possible statements, but it had to wait until the government is ready with all the facts and the statement was made on the floor of the House.
Okay, Adil, why did previous Congress governments have a policy of not developing the border areas to prevent the entry of the enemy? Are we not paying the price now?
Well, Maria, your statement is absolutely incorrect. But coming to the issue at hand, the Congress party salutes the bravery of the Indian Armed Forces, and we are confident that the Indian Army will repel our adversaries who attempt to intrude onto Indian soil. I think there are no two ways about this. Having said this, the Congress party is equally and deeply concerned about the government's ambivalence, their vacillation, and their denial, which is manifesting right since the time of Doklam. Let's not forget that the Prime Minister said that there was no intrusion in 2020 when we lost 20 of our brave hearts. So I put this question to Mr. GVL Rao. If there was no intrusion, what were 18 rounds of negotiations about at 15,000 feet? Were they discussing the weather? Number one. Number two, what appears is that the government's appeasement policy towards China is emboldening the Chinese. Let's understand we have a belligerent adversary in the form of China. So therefore, it's all the more important to take the bull by the horns. The Prime Minister continues to remain in a state of denial. The government remains in a state of denial. I think we as countrymen are duty bound. On the contrary, the government is duty bound to be transparent about this. After all, we all are Indians.
Yes, this point being made by Adil is also what the government has been saying, that you said you promised big action, from banning Chinese apps to stopping trade with China. And was this some kind of an unrealistic statement to make then? Because if we look at pure data which has been put out by your own government, by Commerce Ministry in its reply in Rajya Sabha, there has been a massive surge in India-China trade in 2021-2022. It stood at $115 billion, which was the highest since 2014-2015. So what is the message that you're trying to give? GVL Narasimha Rao.
No. You see, the question is, we have certainly made we've taken several initiatives towards Atmanirbharata. The production-linked incentive schemes announced by the Government of India has been a huge success. We certainly have, with the revival of the economy, certainly your imports are going up because there are supply chains that have got established over several decades. And several industries here cannot go into production until their supply lines are either replaced or they have domestic supply lines available, which cannot happen overnight. And therefore, while we have taken concrete steps in banning several of their apps and also banning 5G equipment, telecom equipment of China for security and other reasons, we have certainly taken several concrete steps, but we don't want to take steps which will hurt Indian economy. We will certainly do where it hurts China, but we don't want to hurt our industry. So it will take some time for us to really create alternate supply lines, and the process is very much on.
Then in that
various
case,
sectors,
Narasimha
including pharmaceuticals.
Was it really an unrealistic statement to make? And then Adil, what he says, and is something that all opposition parties are saying,
no, not at
that
all.
when your party says or your ministers say on the floor of the House that not an inch has been given, that is what even the China is saying. That yes, nothing has moved.
Then why the discussions? Why the negotiations?
Not an inch of land has been. Can I complain? You have asked me a question. Let me answer this. Not an inch of land, either in Galwan Valley or in Arunachal or anywhere. Not an inch has been ceded. And let's see who's asking these questions. The Congress party, which ceded 37,000 square kilometers in 1962. The Congress party, which is asking us these questions, in 2008, they literally could not help when Chinese army destroyed Jorawar Fort in Demchok. In 2012, when the UPA was in power, the PLA had made an observing point at the same place. The sugar colony was formed by building 13 houses with cement. And there were 600 incursions between 2008 and 2013 when the Congress was in power. And the Congress party has no locus standi. They have allowed tens of thousands of square kilometers of Indian land to be gifted or ceded to China. And today, when the government is making a categorical statement that not an inch has been ceded, they are unable to digest this fact. They want, actually, while they mouth all these inanities saying, oh, we are with the forces, the reality is they are actually insulting our forces.
Okay.
Their statements are actually meant to lower the morale of the armed forces. Why did Rahul Gandhi hide the fact from the country when he met with the Chinese ambassador in 2018? What did they have to, why did the Congress party lie that this meeting did not happen? When the Chinese embassy put out the news, the Congress party was red-faced. In 2018, when Rahul Gandhi went to Kailash Mansarovar, what discussions did they have? In 2008, when they had an MOU with the
India
PLA,
has thwarted
with the CPC,
another attempt,
what was this all about?
another transgression by China. If this kind of domestic politics plays out, are the politicians not playing at the hands of China with this kind of politicking?
On the contrary, Maria, it is the BJP which is playing into the hands of the Chinese. And if you bear with me for 45 seconds, I will demonstrate to your viewers. Number one, and perhaps common sense has become uncommon in the BJP. If there is no transgression at Galwan, if there was no incursion in Galwan, can the enlightened BJP spokesperson tell the country what were 18 rounds of negotiations about? Were they discussing what to wear at Christmas? What were 18 rounds of negotiations about at 15,000 feet post Galwan if there was no incursion? What was the issue about making buffers within your territory if there was no incursion? So please don't be dishonest. We are one on this issue. We are Indians.
No, I will answer this.
We may be political adversaries, but we are Indians. Let's not lose sight of this fact. So therefore, you can only treat a problem if you diagnose the problem. If you want to continue to remain in denial, the Chinese will get emboldened. Because they have got to know that for the BJP government, protecting the PM's image is more important than protecting the borders.
Okay.
The Chinese are being very clever.
But Adil, if you look at the muted response that has come from China this time around, it's a complete shift from what we saw during Galwan. This is not an aggressive China. They realize that India's military capabilities and particularly the infrastructure development has actually put them in a spot. Shouldn't that be one aspect for which this government must be congratulated? Yes, in the last few years, the infrastructure defense capabilities is something that is strengthening the armed forces.
Maria, I am surprised by your observation. The government of India seated Doklam. The government of India, and ask General Hudda and ask General Hasnain, the government of India, ask Brahma Chelani, the government of India has agreed to create buffer zones within our territory. The government of India could not even call out Chinese on the incursions. So which world are we living in?
No, but both of them lauded the government and the armed forces, particularly on this one. They were talking about the infrastructure supremacy that India has managed to achieve. GVL, go ahead.
Maria.
Go ahead, GVL.
Maria, he's getting more time.
You see, on the one hand, on the one hand, Congress party's spokespersons keep saying, oh, we have faith in our armed forces, we have great respect for their valor. But on the other hand, all the statements by the Indian Army chief and other defense personnel, they question them in this manner. They question surgical strikes. They made light of even Balakot airstrike. And now they are questioning even statements made by the Indian Army chief on Galwan Valley. They want to believe, I think they want to actually act as a PR firm. I'm making this allegation. Why is the Congress party, what interest does it have apart from taking that money in the foundation? Why does it act as a PR agency for the Communist Party of China? Why do you indulge in spreading this kind of lies in India?
But GVL, questioning and demanding answers and clarity from the government should not be seen as questioning the Indian Army. If they are demanding answers from the government, then the government can respond. Why should it be seen as questioning and demoralizing the forces?
No, when they are not believing even what our Indian Army is saying. You can question the government, but statements made by Indian Armed Forces who announced the surgical strikes to the country. It was not the government. It was certainly a DGMO. Director General of Military Operations, he addressed a press conference. We did not talk about it. There was no party press conference. But you questioned surgical strikes. You wanted video proof. You did not accept the bravery of the Indian armed forces. But eventually the video was shown and you had egg on your face. The Congress party looked very silly in a Balakot airstrike. What kind of statements were made by the then
30
Congress
seconds
leader
quickly,
Sidhu?
quickly
What did he say?
from you, Adil. Respond to that and then I move on to the second topic.
Your approach is to lower the forces, morale of the forces. It's an allegation. Please answer.
Yes, Adil, quickly, 30 seconds.
You know, it appears that my friend is intellectually very innocent. We have a very strong army. I hope you are able to percolate this. We have a very, very strong army. But unfortunately, we have a timid government. I'll repeat it for you once again. We have a very strong army, but we have a timid government. Come out of your state of denial. The Chinese are taking advantage of your appeasement. The more you deny, the more emboldened they'll become.
All right.
And
Adil Singh
finally,
Baparai and
to your
GVL,
viewers.
thank you so much. GVL will be continuing for the second debate as well. There is a fresh political flashpoint in the state of West Bengal after the prime accused in the investigation into the massacre at Bogutui in the Birbhum district was found dead in CBI custody on Monday.
If somebody is dead when he was under the custody of CBI, so how the people of the country will put their faith on the agency?
See, investigation was on for the Bogutui case and Lalan Sheikh was in the custody. So this is a custodial death. But whether it is a suicide or whether he was forced to commit this suicide because of immense pressure on the family. And now who has given this pressure on the family? Those facts needs to come out because maybe there is some kind of a cover-up which TMC is trying to do.
So the accused Lalan Sheikh was found dead inside a toilet. An FIR has been registered and an investigation is underway. But Chief Minister of Bengal, Mamata Banerjee, has questioned the death, saying it may be time to investigate the CBI officials themselves. Meanwhile, the BJP claims that TMC might have put pressure on his family to save its leaders. Remember, 10 people were burned to death when 8 huts were set ablaze in that village on March 21st after the murder of TMC Panchayat official Bhadu Sheikh. The war words between the TMC and BJP continues to escalate, with the TMC now pointing fingers at the centre over the integrity of the investigation. GVL Narasimha Rao continues to be with us. We are also being joined now by Riju Datta, spokesperson of the Trinamool Congress. GVL, Lalan Sheikh was in custody of the CBI and it is a custodial death. Shouldn't that be investigated?
Certainly, I think the investigation or inquiry is very much on. Inquiry possibly has been completed and a report submitted to the CBI. But certainly, the accused here, he himself is a major accused. And he was accused of burning alive several innocent people. And certainly, is the Congress party, is the Trinamool Congress supporting a criminal like him, who actually roasted people alive? And as far as the custodial death, as it is called, is concerned, certainly there are internal procedures within the CBI to investigate the matter. They are looking into it. There can be, while the TMC is making accusations, even a needle of suspicion, certainly even has to be pointed towards the TMC. Were they trying to prevent the real criminals behind this attack?
So the wife here is saying that it is the CBI which killed her husband. That they came to her house on Monday afternoon,
she could be
get out the house and kept asking for a hard disk. They have killed my husband is what she is saying.
No, No, you see, everything will be a part of that inquiry, but no one is surprised. No one will be surprised if Trinamool Congress coached her or coerced her into saying what they want her to say.
Okay.
Because you know what is the position of law and order in the state of West Bengal. Certainly, Trinamool Congress is capable of doing any manipulation in Bengal.
Okay.
So certainly,
Riju
even
Datta,
their role
who are
may
you
have to be
trying to
investigated.
protect? Who are you trying to protect? That is the charge that is coming from the BJP.
I feel very bad for the honorable MP. He's trying to defend the indefensible here. Now let me educate, I'm using the word, let me educate your viewers who are not from West Bengal on a chronology of events. Number one, the leader of opposition of West Bengal, Shubhendu Adhikari, from November, he has been given an ultimatum that we will make sure that the elected government topples in December. And specifically and categorically, he has given 3 dates. 12th of December, 14th of December, and 21st of December. And on 12th of December, the prime accused in the Boktui mass murder, Lalan Sheikh, has been found hanging in CBI custody. It is apparently the CBI which is supposedly the safest and the ultimate weapon of the central disposition against all atrocities committed in this country. Now, if the prime accused in a mass murder, in a high-flying mass murder, dies in their custody, what does it show of the CBI? And let me tell you, is this a pure coincidence that on December 12th, which the leader of opposition Shubhendu Adhikari categorically said there will be a December dhamaka, the prime accused in a mass murder dies inside CBI custody.
Okay, so no, what are you alleging? What are you alleging then?
I am alleging.
So you are saying that the leader of opposition knew about it?
Exactly. Otherwise, how is he predicting dates? And secondly, one more allegation I'll make, that I think it is Shubhendu Adhikari, and at his behest, the central agency has killed him off because his wife on channel, in front of the media, has said
no, but this is a huge charge that you're leveling against
someone.
Can I finish, please? But Riju, then go and approach the courts.
Yes, 1 second. The wife of Lalan Sheikh has come in front of the media. Honorable MP, please let me finish and then I'll hear you patiently. The wife of Lalan Sheikh has come in front of the media and said the CBI has beaten him black and blue and demanded 50 lakh rupees to let go of the case. We could not provide that. That's why they have murdered him. Okay. I am not saying that. Lalan Sheikh's
but
wife
GVL, because there has been no official statement by the CBI yet, and that is the reason why this entire case is getting so murky. And of course, a statement that was made by Shubhendu Adhikari about a possible bomb on 12th December. Is this the bomb he was mentioning, is what the TMC is saying?
I think this has to be called bizarre. What has been made as a political statement about some political developments in December cannot be attributed to the hanging or death of an accused in a mass murder case. Certainly the CBI is looking into this matter. The entire case has actually been transferred to the CBI on the orders of the Kolkata High Court, and certainly any family can knock on the doors of the High Court. But statements being made by anyone cannot be taken at face value. There has to be a proper inquiry and facts must come out. Anyone trying to make political statements on this is certainly not interested in ensuring justice for the family. In fact, the accused himself is a horrible murderer, but certainly his family needs justice.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, my 2 pointed questions. Yes, he is a murderer. His family demands justice. We are not supporting murderers. Arey Baba, your MLA who won from BJP called Bilkis Bano rapists, Sanskari Brahmins. So let's not go into whataboutery, sir. My 2 pointed questions are this. 1, CBI custodial death of a prime accused on the date which Shubhendu Adhikari predicted. Number 1, how will you explain that? Number 2, CBI is also interrogating and is doing investigation in all opposition parties. One of our stalwart leaders, Anubrata Mandal, is also in central agency custody. Can you guarantee his safety? Now we think that our leaders who are being investigated by central agencies might be killed off. What is the guarantee of that? And the third most important point I want to ask you is that can you categorically say, and on national television and in front of the viewers of CNN News 18, that the central agencies are not working at your behest and they are completely independent and all the accused in CBI custody are safe right now? Can you please say that?
GVL.
Maria, I think no. You see, this is a very rare incident. I have very rarely do you hear such cases, and yeah, obviously it's a very rare incident. Deaths during investigation or in custody generally do not happen, particularly with the CBI. A lot of your state, you look into the state police record, Bengal, there will be a number of such cases. But certainly it is incumbent upon CBI to investigate this. They're already investigating it. Apparently, as per media reports, there is a report that has already been submitted to the CBI headquarters, and they will certainly
the TMC is alleging, they are alleging, one moment, they are alleging suicide, that he has been forced to commit suicide. It is a subject of investigation, of course. The CBI is saying that there will be judicial probe in this entire incident, but why make politics of it? Why has it become a political hot potato?
Okay, I will say very clearly. When he was arrested after 9 months by the CBI, he was arrested after 9 months of searching him. He was arrested in December. Now, where he was arrested from? He was a resident of that same village, Boktui village, right?
Jharkhand.
Now, near Boktui, there are 3 police stations, Rampurhat, Ballabpur and another one, which are government police stations. But the CBI said, we will not take him to a government police station. We will take him to a makeshift camp of the CBI where we can, keep him under 24-hour surveillance. Then how did he commit suicide? As per norms, a primary accused in a mass murder, even in his washroom, there should be CCTV. And God forbid, if this would have happened in the custody of any state police of any opposition party in this country, BJP would have shouted for our
GVL,
blood.
I have just enough time for you and your final comment, because it's not, he was not in a local police station or in jail custody. He was under CBI remand, and this incident is happening there. It's a premier investigating agency. The investigating agency has much to explain, and they have chosen silence.
No, they won't give you, they won't go out public until their internal investigation is not complete. I'm not therefore surprised. Don't expect them to put out half-baked facts without proper inquiry. But this is certainly a very isolated incident. The TMC is certainly understandably using it to tarnish the image of the CBI, because they have a lot of other cases where they are under the CBI scanner. They want to purely play politics out of it and use this to blame the CBI. But certainly it's an important, it's a very strange thing that has happened and an unacceptable thing. So let's wait for the investigative report to come out.
All right.
Targeting hundreds of our people, hundreds of our cadres are killed in West Bengal in broad daylight.
Shameful.
Our TMC friend is speaking as if there is no violence in Bengal. Hundreds of our cadres have been killed. They have been dragged from their homes. Women have been raped. What shameful? I think shameful of TMC.
Shame on BJP for doing this.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. We are slipping into a short break. Up next, travel trouble continues for commuters at the Delhi airport amidst the holiday rush. Angry commuters demand immediate solutions. That report after a quick break. Stay with us.
The Chinese are not going to sit still. In Galwan, it happened 2 years ago. In Yangtse, it's happened just this past week. If this is a new normal, if this is a new pattern, then surely the Indian Defence Forces will be well prepared for it. So this latest clash that happened between Indian and Chinese troops comes 2 years after what we saw in Galwan. It's important to understand where this happened. It's happened in a place called Yangtse, and let's try and sort of locate Yangtse on a map in the eastern sector for you. It's very close to Tawang. It's about 25-30 kilometers northeast of Tawang. Remember, Tawang is the last big command headquarters that we have as far as the eastern side is concerned, the eastern sector is concerned. Remember, both India and China have been building infrastructure, particularly the Chinese side, heavy-duty infrastructure leading all the way up to some villages on the other side of Yangtse. India too has been building a new road in a place called Bamla, east of Bamla, and before this clash point that happened in Yangtse. So there has been massive infrastructure built up by both sides on either side of this clash site called Yangtse. Now the important thing to understand is that this clash, this happened on the intervening night between 8th and 9th of December. This was last week. It happened at 3 a.m. and we're given to understand that about 300 Chinese PLA soldiers, that's not a small number, 300 Chinese PLA soldiers in the dead of the night at 3 in the morning tried to capture the icy heights. Remember, these heights are 15,000 feet, 17,000 feet. The attempt was to try and capture the heights and get area domination around the Yangtse. Now, why this is important is if either side manages to capture these heights, like I said, the plateaus here are 10,000, 12,000 feet, and the peaks, the heights, are at anywhere between 15 to 17,000 feet. If either side manages to capture this, and remember this is disputed site, all along the 3,500 kilometer line of actual control that runs all the way from Ladakh in the western sector all the way up to Tawang in the eastern sector, there are about 20 to 25 recognized disputed spots. Yangtse happens to be one of them. If either side captures Yangtse, then what it means is it gives you visibility, the area domination, the height advantage. It gives you visibility for about 25 to 30 kilometers on either side, on the Indian side as well as on the Chinese side. What this means is then in these harsh climatic conditions where snow sometimes can reach about 7-10 inches, in these harsh climatic conditions, there is no need for daily patrolling on the ground because you get clear visibility on either side. You can, from Yangtse, from the heights of Yangtse, you can see all the way up to Tawang. So it is important that that height domination and area domination be established. So what the Chinese soldiers were trying to do on that intervening night between 8th and 9th of December was to capture the heights of Yangtse. Now, this is not the first time that this place, Yangtse, has been a site of dispute between Indian and Chinese troops. This same place, the Chinese troops had tried something similar at a much smaller scale, though, in October of 2021, that was last year. Similarly, they had done so in 2016 as well. Now, that time too was around that October-November period. Why they're doing this now at this point of time is once the snow sets in, the terrain is very difficult, the weather is inclement, you cannot move around these areas very easily. It's very difficult to move large number of troops. Therefore, they were looking for that height advantage. And like I said, Yangtse is already one of the recognized disputed sites along the 3,500 kilometer line of actual control. Now, the modus operandi, and this is where it gets interesting. The question that Indian authorities are asking themselves is, was this similar to the modus operandi that we saw in Galwan, and is that now a new normal with the Chinese, or is there something less localized as far as this is concerned? The similar modus operandi, there were no lethal weapons, no guns, no armaments of any nature that were used. It was clubs, machetes, sticks. There were 6 Indian soldiers who were grievously injured. They had to be flown out from Yangtse to the field hospital in Guwahati. We're given to understand from top army sources that there is a higher number of PLA soldiers too who have been injured. Remember, there were about 300 who came. The Indian side immediately called for reinforcements. There were
Terminal 3 at the Delhi airport has been in the news over the past 1 week for all the wrong reasons. Congestion, long queues, fights among passengers, and even passengers missing flights. At the face of it, the post-COVID revenge travel appears to be the culprit.
On the 11th of December, India saw more than 4 lakh domestic passengers, the highest since the COVID outbreak in March 2020. Passengers who have taken a flight over the last 1 week have all complained about the long snarls at security checks, shortage of baggage trays, lack of X-ray machines, and not enough security personnel at check-in counters. Reacting to the criticism from passengers, the centre has now initiated an action plan. The centre hopes to tackle issues at entry, security and immigration. Traffic marshals will be posted at departure forecourt to avoid vehicular congestion. 2 additional gates have been opened up, taking the total number of gates to 18. Awareness posters will be put up at the entry gate for passengers to be ready with their boarding cards, and dedicated resources will be deployed at the entry gate to usher in passengers. An additional X-ray machine has been installed at the T3 domestic terminal. Additional manpower has been deployed to help passengers for tray preparation and congestion management. Awareness posters, mobile announcements are being undertaken to inform passengers about the do's and don'ts. Incoming international passengers have been urged to complete their immigration paper landing cards while being on board. Manpower will be deployed at disembarkation points to facilitate passengers who have not managed to fill in their papers. The number of flights during 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. will also be reduced. It will also be explored to move some flights to T1 and T2 or to non-peak hours at T3. Authorities also aim to post real-time updates on waiting time on social media. But despite this, airlines have issued advisories for passengers to keep a minimum of 3 to 3.5 hours while travelling to T3. As passengers scramble to reach their destination this holiday season, the question many are asking is, shouldn't we have been better prepared?
Days, they relinquished it and they went back onto the other side of Yangtse, this disputed site, as it were. So the important thing is that for the Chinese, and remember, particularly in the last 10, 15 years or so, from 2008-9 onwards, every time a senior government official from India would visit Tawang, the Chinese would make a huge hue and cry about it. They refer to Tawang as part of southern Tibet. And like I said, for not just military reasons, but for political reasons as well, the Chinese have never really given up their claim on Tawang. The important question is this. The incident that happened at Yangtse, the trigger factor of these launch pads, because it's not just here at Yangtse where these launch pads are there, it's there all across the line of actual control. And second, the modus operandi. Remember, the 93 and 96 agreements bar Indian and Chinese troops from opening fire. The last big fire happened in Sabudrongchu in 1986. But are they bypassing that? Are they diverting from that by using clubs and machetes? And is this now a new modus operandi? These are the larger policy questions, military, tactical questions as well, that the Indian Defence Forces and, of course, the political leadership will have to contend with. But one thing is very, very clear. The Chinese are not going to sit still. In Galwan, it happened 2 years ago. In Yangtse, it's happened just this past week. If this is a new normal, if this is a new pattern, then surely the Indian Defence Forces will be well prepared for it. So this latest clash that happened between Indian and Chinese troops comes 2 years after what we saw in Galwan. It's important to understand where this happened. It's happened in a place called Yangtse, and let's try and sort of locate Yangtse on a map in the eastern sector for you. It's very close to Tawang. It's about 25-30 kilometers northeast of Tawang. Remember, Tawang is the last big command headquarters that we have as far as the eastern side is concerned, the eastern sector is concerned. Remember, both India and China have been building infrastructure, particularly the Chinese side, heavy-duty infrastructure leading all the way up to some villages on the other side of Yangtse. India too has been building a new road in a place called Bamla, east of Bamla, and before this clash point that happened in Yangtse. So there has been massive infrastructure build-up by both sides on either side of this clash site called Yangtse. Now, the important thing to understand is that this clash, this happened on the intervening night between 8th and 9th of December. This was last week. It happened at 3 a.m. and we're given to understand that about 300 Chinese PLA soldiers. That's not a small number. 300 Chinese PLA soldiers in the dead of the night at 3 in the morning tried to capture the icy heights. Remember, these heights are 15,000 feet, 17,000 feet. The attempt was to try and capture the heights and get area domination around the Yangtze. Now, why this is important is if either side manages to capture these heights, like I said, the plateaus here are 10,000, 12,000 feet, and the peaks, the heights, are at anywhere between